next up, we will be speaking to the one, the only Mariah Moore, who is co-president of the House of Tulip, an organization in New Orleans, which takes a comprehensive approach to dealing with violence, from economic to housing insecurity to health insecurity. As I have written about before, we have to take that approach in order to be able to deal with violence. It's not only the specific incidences, but the environment surrounding violence. We're also thrilled to be talking to Mariah because she was just named to the Route 100 as one of the most influential African Americans. So for so many reasons, Mariah, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Amara.
Thank you, thank you. So the House of Tulip is really, a microcosm of so many positive things and approaches to deal with violence, as I mentioned, from housing insecurity to health insecurity to economic insecurity and so many other services that you all are connecting people with. And I'm wondering if you can just talk a little bit about why you started House of Tulip with your co-president, Milan.
Yeah, so thank you so much again for that beautiful introduction. So myself and Milan Cherry, who is also one of the co-founders and co-directors of the House of Tulip, alongside myself, came together to fulfill a need that we saw, a continuous need that we saw at the beginning of the pandemic that we always knew existed. But more personally for me, I think I was so invested because of my many life experiences, right? I am a former sex worker. I am a survivor of anti-trans violence. While engaging in sex work, I have faced housing insecurity, food insecurity, amongst a plethora of other obstacles and barriers in my life. And so it was so important when I came together with other community leaders here in New Orleans, and we participated in our COVID Crisis Relief Fund, which provided about $20,000 that was redistributed directly to community in response to the need caused by the pandemic. And myself and Milan came together after we concluded the COVID Crisis Fund to really think about ways in which we could provide long-term solutions for our community. And the thing that we landed on was housing, because we know that housing is the first step to addressing all of the other issue areas like employment, linkage to care. So just really thinking about, like we talked about yesterday, really having a big solution for a big problem, bringing community together and really creating a network of sisterhood and siblinghood that many of us don't have. And many of us will, experience a lot of the things that we're addressing. So that was my main reason for coming together with Milan to create the House of Tulip. And I'm sorry, today has been a really rough day. There's been a lot going on. So if I stumble a little bit, please excuse me.
No, it is a very rough day. It is a very rough day. On this particular point, I think one of the things that's innovative about the House of Tulip is the fact that you actually put the goal of building assets and ownership for trans women. You have a model of building a desire to build this community where you're raising money to build homes for trans women, that you will eventually help trans women put down payments on properties, that you're trying to create an ownership model. And I think that the reason why that's important, people may not realize, is that we know that, for example, if you make less than $24,000 a year, you are 3 times more likely as a woman to be susceptible to violence than if you make $75,000 a year. So in so many ways, violence is an economics issue. And that's one of the things that you are approaching and attacking. And I'm wondering what you're finding the response to that is when you say, look, we're raising money to make sure that trans women can have assets.
Yes, absolutely. So not just trans women, the entire TGNC community, right? So yes. with a razor sharp lens on the most marginalized, which include Black trans women and femmes, undocumented folks, folks with disabilities. But the response has been an overwhelming outpour of support. I think that a lot of people really have been waiting on something like this that really addresses not just one issue area, but every issue area, right? Fully and true wraparound services, but also having a plan of growth. And like you said, assets, not just saying this is a shelter and it ends here, because it doesn't end here. We want to walk through life with you, grow with you, and then see you off so that you can see someone else through this process, right? It's an inheritance. And so when we talk about building that inheritance, that includes the first step of our housing structure, which is immediate housing, which it's zero barrier, right? So, you know, there are no term limits or time limits to when you can stay. And we will work with you to determine what the next steps should be. The second phase of our project is actually obtaining small plots of land, right? And building upon that, right? Never selling the land, but granting but like you said, granting that to our community members where they can own the actual structure, right? So that community land trust, it always stays within community. So I think this is something that we've never seen before, something that's inspiring, something that people, a lot of our community members are excited about, because they're finally getting a chance at life when you think about it, right? For many of the founders that are involved with the House of Tulip, this is the closest that we've ever been to the home ownership process. That speaks volumes, you know? And I think it's just so powerful that, you know, even this process inspires us to want more, to do more for ourselves, let alone other people, because it's showing us what we truly deserve. And that is so critical.
Yeah, and I mean, as you say, like, the basis for housing really is the basis for everything else, right? It's the basis to get a job. It's the basis to access everything else. Like, we've built a society where housing and home ownership really becomes the basis for so many things, and the exclusion of trans women from that process is one of the contributing factors to our deaths, right? That's a reality. What are some of the ways that people can, well, before I ask that question, what are the things that you're learning about this process and this different approach to ending violence, this more comprehensive approach that you hope will be replicated across the country? You're in New Orleans now, but if you were giving, you know, what are the things that you're learning that you hope other people copy, essentially?
I just hope they copy the zero barrier sentiment that we're carrying with us. Like, yes, things will be tough, things will be difficult to navigate, but we're not going to give up on community, because we don't want community to give up on us, right? We're going to figure out ways to work with community members, but also realize that one specific approach does not apply to each individual community member. So moving forward, knowing that you have to have an individualized plan for each person that comes into your care, right? You have to, you know, make sure that they are getting genuine gender affirming care, right? Not just in healthcare, but in housing, making sure that they feel comfortable accessing that education that you are providing, because ultimately that is your responsibility. So really taking on the challenge to really commit to walking community, to really being there and walking with community members each step of the way, guiding them each step of the way, right? And realizing and giving grace that people may fall behind a little bit, right? We have to be willing to give that grace and allow them to start over, because many of us have started over several times in many different situations. So it is just my hope that people will really take zero and housing first approaches and realize that just because you give housing doesn't mean that you can't venture off into other things. Realize that housing is the basis of addressing all of these issues. I know firsthand, right? I know that, you know, when I didn't have stable housing, a safe space to sleep, I wasn't looking for a job. I wasn't trying to get an education. I wasn't trying to see a primary care physician, right? I wasn't worried about the things that I was consuming, like food and even alcohol. I wasn't worried about that because I was in pure survival mode. I didn't have a support system, right? I didn't have people speaking life into me in some of those moments. So that's so critical for us to create these homes, right? These beloved homes, these communities, these networks of love and support. So that's what I want people across the country, across the world to move forward with, right?
Yeah.
Don't think of it as a program. Think of it as an inheritance, as a home, as a beloved home, you know, treat it as if it was your own personal space, right? And how you like things.
Yeah.
That's how we're moving at the House of Tulip.
Great. And I just wanted to let you know that some people in our audience are agreeing with you that it is a rough week. I just wanted to let you know that you are not alone in that. One person said, yes, rough week, rough year, that they feel you on that. So there are lots of people who are sharing the same sentiment. Jacinda Morrison is her name. So just so that you know that. I wanted to ask you lastly, what are the ways that people can support the House of Tulip?
People can support the House of Tulip by sharing our website, making a donation if you can, sending resources our way. If you know of some sort of opportunity, of some sort of partnership, educational resources that we could use to further educate ourselves as, you know, leaders in this movement and in this fight, please send it our way. If you have donations and you're in the New Orleans or the Louisiana area, send them our way. Reach out to us. If you want to, you know, have a future volunteering with the House of Tulip, reach out to us. All contributions aren't monetary, and you know, sometimes your time is the greatest gift that you can give. And so just reach out, you know, even if you're not in Louisiana or in New Orleans and you have a skill or a gift or a talent that you want to share, we can do it virtually. Reach out. Especially, we need to see good representation. We need to see representation of trans folks living and thriving and speaking life back into one another. So if you are a trans or gender non-conforming person who has, you know, has some sort of you play an instrument or you're a storyteller, something that you want to contribute to the community, please reach out to us. There's more than one way to get involved.
Great. Well, Mariah, thank you so much. I think we can end this interview by an audience comment, also from Jacinda Morrison, who said that what you're doing is wonderful. So I think that is the way that we all feel. Thank you so much for joining us during what is, as you say, a very, very, very tough day.
Mm-hmm.
You are watching Lives at Stake. That brings us to the end of our program for tonight. We wanted to make sure that we spotlighted and highlighted the issues of violence and the ways in which they're unframed during this unprecedented year so far, but also ways that you can, and we can all address violence. And we had so many solutions tonight, from Bev's advice of ways that we can take action personally, regardless of whether we know someone who's trans or not, to comprehensive ways that we can rethink the safety and security of trans women, to the work of nonprofits from House of Tulip. We really hope that tonight's Lives at Stake on this issue has been really educational and hopefully positive, because at the end of the day, it doesn't have to be this way, and we can end the violence that is taking place against trans women and against all women. And we want to make sure that you leave with that hope tonight. This is Amara Jones. You are watching Lives at Stake. We will actually put in the in our chat what our next Lives at Stake is. It will be at the end of November. We hope that all of you can join us. Have a good night and be safe.